traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment brought to you by Unleash Your Wealth with Raj Shah and Rick Borick this Saturday at 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. Learn more at scwealthadvisors.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
All right, it's Jeannie Ives and Jim Urio trying to fill in for Dan this morning. Don't listen to us at 1.5 speed because both Jim and I are kind of
talk fast. I'm trying to slow it down a little bit, but when you get worked up, you just go. You know?
We have so much information we want to convey. It was a big night last night. Trump giving his speech about doing big things and setting the country correctly. And, of course, the biggest news coming out of that is that China's meddling in our elections. Here's more on that speech about China.
As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Isn't that nice? Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job. And they did everything possible to do exactly that. Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America. The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said.
Well, there's nobody better to discuss this topic than Gordon Chang. You can follow him at Gordon G. Chang. He's the author of Plan Red, China's project to destroy America. And based on what Trump said last night, it certainly sounds like they had a plan to try to destroy America. Gordon, thank you so much for joining us today. What is your first remarks about Trump's speech last night?
Trump's speech, Jeannie, was extremely important because we haven't heard an American president talk like this since Eisenhower about China. And it really marks, I think, a departure in American policy. Remember, President Trump went to Beijing in May. Xi Jinping sought to humiliate our president in a number of different ways. Trump just let it roll off his back. But now I can see the president hitting back. And this is important because China right now is in all of our infrastructure, not just our election infrastructure, and we need to get it out immediately.
So it feels like this might be a turning point in our relationship with China. I mean, he has sort of treated them a little bit with kid gloves, other than the sort of tariff dispute that he had at the very beginning of his second term. But, I mean, based on what we just heard last night, and I have not looked at the documents, I mean, we should almost be at war with China.
Well, China is at war with us. They have a different concept of conflict. They call it unrestricted warfare, and it means that they can do anything. That comes from a 1999 book by two Chinese Air Force colonels who argue that China can do anything to take down the U.S. And they specifically talk about bin Laden, who China supported at the time. This is 2 years before 9/11. So we've got to understand the maliciousness of the Chinese regime, and we need to start different because as a society, ourselves with the vigor and determination necessary.
You're cutting out a little bit there, Gordon.
Yeah, we're not defending ourselves the way we should because we don't have the same conception of, we try to have this accommodation with China. China's not trying to accommodate us.
So Gordon, it's Jim Urio. Thanks so much for being on. By the way, you're a great Twitter follower at Gordon Chang. But my question is this, is that you just said we're not fighting the same war as them. Do you think that taking over Venezuela, trying to shut down the Straits of Hormuz, both of those places where China gets the majority of their oil, well, 40% of their oil, do you think these are steps in the right direction to try to weaken China for us to gain well, I know we have the upper hand already. Yeah.
Absolutely. For instance, just forgetting about China for the moment, Venezuela was assaulting all of those caravans of migrants coming into the United States during the previous administration. That wasn't organic. That was organized by the Venezuelan government. So clearly, even apart from the Chinese infiltration of Venezuela, it's important to have changed that government. We've seen President Trump in Panama go after the Chinese infrastructure in the Canal Zone, which is important to secure that vital waterway. And point out, Iran has been effectively a Chinese proxy, disrupting the Middle East with China's resources, and probably at China's direction as well, because China has been wanting to do that to the United States and to our friends in the region. So President Trump has been doing that, and that's good. But we've got a lot of Chinese infiltration in our society.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, for sure. I mean, for me, example number one is the Goshen plant in Mantino's, Illinois, and I appreciate your advocacy for helping us get rid of that plant, shutting it down. The latest news from there, and I'd love your comment on this, is that Richardson Electronics out of LaFox, Illinois, has joined with Goshen, partnering with Goshen to now build these grid-scale batteries and also batteries that will go into data centers. Now, everybody should be concerned about it, because if Goshen, a Chinese entity, which, by the way, they want to deny that, but Energy Storage News put this out when this announcement with Richardson Electronics went forward. They put out they flat out said that, they flat out called Goshen a China headquartered energy storage firm. So Goshen is a Chinese company, and they should not be involved in building any of our infrastructure, critical infrastructure that is related to data centers, that is related to our energy grid whatsoever. And yet you have American companies partnering with them. I think this should be entirely shut down, and we shouldn't be doing anything with the Chinese government that's internal here for manufacturing.
Oh, clearly, because we know that China is already in our infrastructure and has the ability to turn off our grids. So, for instance, those devices in solar farms can be manipulated from China to shut down in the United States these solar farms. And I'm sure that when we talk about data centers, China is already in there with their equipment that they can manipulate from offshore. So this is a national emergency.
Another quick question, too. We had a guest on before, Cleta Mitchell, who is an election. She works on elections. But anyway, with this information that China perhaps was involved in our elections, and of course they probably are, like you said, it's unrestricted warfare. Something came up. The fact that our media often gaslights us about election results and about what should happen to, and she suggested that it perhaps should be looked into that China is influencing media in this country. Do you think that's an avenue worth going down as far as investigative?
Oh, absolutely, because we do know that China has been in all of our internet infrastructure. And it was not just the hack of election data. We've seen the hack of, for instance, government information at the Office of Public Management, also at all of these insurance companies. China's been trying to get data about Americans that it can use against us. So, for instance, to find blackmail information.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about, Gordon. I'm talking about more like the legacy media, like NBC, CBS, ABC. I'm not accusing any of them yet. I'm talking about that type of media. Do you think that's something worth worrying about? I know the social media part.
Yes, of course, because last night we saw a number of the major media platforms not cover the president's speech because they said that he was going to lie about the 2020 election. election results.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't do that. And I think these large media platforms, which include CNN, need to apologize not only to the American president, but to the American people.
Okay, Gordon, one last question. Where is China in terms of trying to take on Taiwan at this point in Trump's administration?
China has made it clear that they have recently the first week of last month, they claimed a portion of the Pacific Ocean as sovereign Chinese water, which is ludicrous. But this water is east of Taiwan, and it indicates an attempt to impose a blockade on Taiwan because we see their ships and their planes circling the island in substantial numbers on a regular basis. And this claim to part of the
All right. Well, there we go. We had a hard time hearing him at the end there. Gordon Chang, at Gordon G. Chang, is his X handle, author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. He dropped. We are having some communication problems there, but we are
which is irritating because he's great. He is a wealth of knowledge. Good. I wanted to just absorb everything he was saying. So I'm
all right.
Well,
we'll be right back with more from Jim and Jeannie filling in for Dan. And Gordon Chang joined us on the Alpha Wealth Group answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Don't miss In Grace